Why don't you just hit me with your 3-unit play to start?
All right, so 3-unit. I'm gonna pick a team who I think is gonna stink. I'm gonna go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I get the Vikings for under 5.5 wins. This is plus 184 at FanDuel.
So is this an adjusted win total?
This is an alternate line. Win total at FanDuel is 7.5 with the juice to the under, 6.5 at DraftKings with the juice to the over. So basically, sportsbooks are expecting 7 wins from this team.
Yeah.
I'll take a little extra value and go with under 5.5, projecting out 5. If you want to go with the exact win market, 5 wins for the Vikings at FanDuel is 6-1, DraftKings plus 475. So I guess that again speaks to the importance of shopping around a little bit, especially when it comes to the futures market. All right. So first of all, a lot of this ties into the division, which when I say that there's one division that I think is a little bit more open when it comes to the top couple.
That was
teams.
the same. We're on the same page then.
This is that division. But by and large, I think this is going to be a good division. I mean, you just look at some of the projected win totals beyond Minnesota.
I think
Detroit,
it'd be very good.
10.5 juice to the over. Green Bay 9.5 juice to the over. I think there's some 10s out there, 10.5 maybe. Chicago 8.5 juice to the over. So, I mean, their wins are going to be tough to come by in the division. You also look; they play the NFC West and AFC South, all of which have teams that are either good in the case of like San Francisco, the Rams, Houston, or trending upward. Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee. Like I could see them being, even if they're not necessarily good, a problem. They're playing a third place schedule, which in this instance involves games against the Falcons, the Jets, so like teams that also have a pretty high projected win total.
At least second place teams this year.
So, I know Sharp Football Analysis did their strength of schedule rankings, and which basically uses the Vegas win totals. Minnesota, 5th hardest schedule. You couple that with just the on-field from an on-field standpoint, like this has nothing to do with the J.J. McCarthy injury, really.
I was going to say, this is aging well for you.
This is, I mean, that's kind of baked into the line. If anything, I would think that it's kind of a wash for the purposes of this season, McCarthy and Sam Darnold. Like I think the book is kind of out on Darnold, but I don't think you could expect a whole lot from McCarthy.
You have no idea what to expect from McCarthy.
So this is the schedule, but also defensively. I mean, no more Danielle Hunter up front. Cornerback group looks a little thin. Harrison Smith another year older. So like, whether this team has success or doesn't is really going to be up to Brian Flores and what he can do with that defense. And I don't think it's going to be good enough. I think they're going to fall behind early a lot of times. That's when you'll see the Sam Darnold effect if he's trying to throw him back into games. So I just don't like the Vikings. I think that week 1 game against the Giants could have some serious draft implications down the road.
Yeah, I was trying to find there's now that you kind of like lay it all out, I think it was DraftKings. I should have written this down. Wrote it down? Written? Whatever. You can go you can pick a team to go winless in the division, and the Vikings feel alive to be that team. I mean,
this is
the Jordan Addison injury. I know it's not expected to be serious. Just the vibes don't feel good, and also too, like you mentioned, and I get the point about J.J. McCarthy, but I do wonder if there's like a mental reset that comes with that, where it's like, all right, well, let's just push everything to next year, and we'll go from there. Like, or maybe it might behoove them to suck.
I mean, best case scenario for them, right, is that it's almost like I think of the year like Case Keenum bringing the Vikings to the NFC with the miracle game there.
Oh, right.
Where like Case Keenum was kind of in the Sam Darnold role. Like I think Case Keenum was probably better, but like it's a guy that you didn't have worked into your quarterback plans for sure, and all of a sudden you sort of maybe it galvanized you a little bit. Like I don't think they're going to go on a run, obviously, to that extent, but like the best case scenario is you play competitive because it's like at least what quarterback you're rolling with. He's a veteran, whatever, and there are weapons on that offense. So it's not like the Vikings aren't a team that's total trash, necessarily. But I mean,
I would argue that.
Yeah, I mean, but
I just generally speak. I don't like
Justin
the Vikings.
Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones is the man.
Yeah. I don't know. Like this is a weird team because a couple of years ago they went 11-0 in 1-score games. regressed to the mean last year. I think it was 6-8 in one-score games. So
that's good. Yeah,
the reality is probably somewhere there or in the middle.
Yeah.
You know what? The J.J. McCarthy injury, though, is interesting because, to your point, like, what happens now? Like, I don't think it impacts him all that much for this season, but what about next year? You know, like, to your point, do you kind of use that as a reset? Yeah. And also next year will be the final year of, the head coach and the GM, both contracts will be up after next season. So, like, I think they probably went into that whole thing. Like, you look to get some answers as to, like, how their quarterback how he's developing this season. Absent of those answers, it makes next season kind of make or break, or very tricky to like really gauge where you're at organizationally. So
gives you a little bit of comfort room this year too. Like, you're like, well, what do you want? The quarterback.
Yeah, you get a little bit of little bit of leverage. Yeah.
So,
but I just think they're gonna stink. The rest of that division, very good.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, to let dovetail right into my 3-unit play, I'm actually, I guess, technically rooting against yours. Because I have the NFC North is the division with the most combined wins in the entire NFL at plus 330. For a lot of the reasons you kind of already laid out. You went over the win totals for the Packers and the Lions. Did you go over the Bears too? I think they're gonna, people expect them to be good. I actually think it's kind of interesting, just as a bit of a side note. We'll get into this maybe a little bit more next week with the Patriots. There's a story out today. I think Jeff Howe, old friend Jeff Howe, reported that it came down to the Bears and the Falcons, who ended up trading for Matthew Judon. And the Patriots decided to take the Falcons' choice because they thought it would be higher. So I guess that tells you right there, ipso facto, the Patriots are higher on the Bears. They're buying the Bears hype too, especially against the Falcons. It's kind of wild. I started playing around some of the numbers. I was like, well, the Vikings might take this thing down for me, and that's not good. So I looked at like a make the playoffs parlay for the Bears, the Packers, and the Lions. It's only plus 342, so it's a difference of 12 cents. All three of those teams are minus 110 or better to make the playoffs. And I guess you could argue they might beat up on each other. I think the division is going to be a very highly contested race, so I don't think it's going to be one of those things where somebody just pounds the other one and all of a sudden I just think it's going to be a bit of a wash and they'll go clean up outside of the division. I think you look at the Packers and the Lions are the class of this division. Both of them are better than 21 to win the Super Bowl. Chicago 35 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, which honestly I would not bet with your money, but they have the NFL's easiest schedule according to the Sharp Football analysis thing that you mentioned. I was actually having a nice discussion on the NFC North the other day that spurred this with a friend of the program, Denny, who actually, he's a Lions fan. And we were talking about the NFC North, and it's like, hey, this is going to be a pretty competitive division. And you start running through, and it's like the Lions, assuming that they can deal with the burden of expectations, should be just as good, if not better, as they were last year. The Packers were a team that was a handful of plays, even a missed kick away from going to the NFC Championship game, knocking off a 49ers team that ended up going to the Super Bowl and people think can do the same again this year. They were like the youngest team in the league, did that. You got to imagine they're going to be even better this year, especially now that they've got some of that Jordan Love, the uncertainty settled and it's full speed ahead. And the Bears, for as much as I'm skeptical of what Caleb Williams can do in his first season, there's no arguing that they've done a pretty good job, especially when it's juxtaposed it with something we're seeing here in New England of building around their rookie quarterback, where the receiving room is one of the best in the NFL. So I think they're going to score some points. They're going to beat some teams that they probably don't have any business beating. They're going to be a frisky bunch at the very least. And it's like, can we just get the Vikings to 5 wins here? Yeah. And all of a sudden, I think we're looking at a very robust division. The favorite in this market is the AFC North at plus 225. Don't have a whole lot of opinions on that. I think they are kind of very similar divisions, right? Where it's the two teams that you expect to contend for the division are there. It's just going to be a matter of like, what does the middle and the bottom do? There's a lot of uncertainty with both, but I think even on the Packers and the Lions, I feel pretty good about getting at least to the top of this board or near the top of the board and feel going into the end of the season last few weeks.